In 1994, ABC started airing a stop-motion animated television series about the monster living under your bed, and the result was a very creative and unique addition to the Saturday morning cartoon lineup. Created by Ken Pontac and David Blyman, this was Bump in the Night. I actually watched the show way back when, but it had been more than 2 decades since I last gave it a look. And watching it again, I can understand why it appealed to me at a young age. The show actually had its origins in a series of bumpers for ABC's Saturday morning block featuring a monster and his friends, hence the title of the show and the lead character's name, Mr. Bumpy. Apparently, ABC was impressed enough to produce an entire television series featuring them and their adventures in a boy's messy bedroom. Mr. Bumpy was an energetic little monster, always getting to some kind of scrape, and with an appetite for everything from dirty socks to book pages. He was voiced by Jim Cummings, who brought exactly the right attitude to Bumpy and made already funny lines even funnier. As an example of the show's creativity, Bump in the Night was filled with many inventive characters. Bumpy's best friend was Squishy, an aquatic-type monster who lived in the toilet. You might think the writers would use this as an excuse for lowbrow poop jokes, but his defining characteristics are actually being clean and a bit of a coward. He's also voiced by Rob Paulsen, who is delightful in the role. They're often joined on their escapades by Molly, a comfort doll voiced by former SNL cast member Gail Mathias. She brings the necessary sweet demeanor to Molly, although the character's harsher side does come out at many points, and those provide laughs of their own. Adding to the incredible imagination of the series, a frequent adversary for Bumpy is the closet monster, the result of the boy's unused clothes becoming sentient. The animation is very impressive on this character, and shows how the creators were willing to experiment and try all sorts of clever ideas. Throughout the series, Bumpy often comes across a number of antagonists, including space aliens, a zombie bread slice, an insect pretending to be a genie, and even germs. There's also an episode where Gilbert Gottfried voices a stink bug who falls in love with Molly and then later Bumpy. Another episode that stands out is one where Bumpy fights with a glove in order to obtain a sock to eat. This episode is one long sequence of these two going at it and shows how enormously talented the animators were in presenting the show's slapstick. Bump in the Night also filmed live-action scenes when showing the people who live in the house. These scenes added a lot to the environment and atmosphere of the show, and a few episodes even had the animated characters react directly to the live actors. Although for some reason the boy changed races in between seasons. Did they think nobody would notice? In between the episodes, Bump in the Night also included musical segments with rewritten covers of well-known songs. These featured the characters singing in a karaoke bar and consisted of montages of reused clips, but they do the job of being entertaining enough. Some episodes even had musical numbers of their own, so they clearly wanted to take advantage of Cummings and Paulsen's singing chops. They also saved on animation that might be required to fill the needed 22 minutes. Speaking of which, I don't know what budget ABC gave the series, but I get the feeling the second season was not given as much money as the first. The animation was still high quality, but there were a lot of shortcuts taken too. First season segments were paired up with newer episodes, and I noticed several recycled clips, with an emphasis on close-ups with new dialogue dubbed over them. Don't do a drinking game for every time they cut to this shot of Squishy. I must have seen that shot about 50 times, maybe more when watching the series. Despite the occasional cut corners the producers were required to do, the animation stayed consistently excellent. The characters very much operate on cartoon logic, and the animators have fun with squashing and flattening Bumpy, Squishy, and the rest of the ensemble. I already mentioned the closet monster, but the animation on Molly is impressive too, considering she's supposed to be several doll parts stitched together. The animation can get very fluid at several points, and the hard work of the animators is all over the production. Timothy Hiddle, an Oscar-nominated stop-motion animator who has worked on a number of Henry Selick and Pixar projects, even contributed to a number of episodes. After producing the shorter television episodes, the Bump in the Night crew were also given the chance to make an hour-long Christmas special titled "'Twas the Night Before Bumpy." Serving as the show's series finale, this is actually a pretty fun special as we watch Bumpy and Squishy head to the North Pole to get Santa's gifts. Meanwhile, Molly stays behind to direct the holiday pageant. The song numbers are enjoyable, and the depiction of Santa's workshop as a military operation leads to some inspired gags, especially when Bumpy and Squishy come face to face with the elves. Their storyline ends up being a funny take on heist movies, and the animators plot all the stops with the action scenes. "'Twas the Night Before Bumpy" is a nice resolution to the Bump in the Night series, and a worthy farewell to these characters. Why did the show only last 2 seasons? Well, shortly after the special aired, Disney acquired ABC, and the decision was made to replace the entire Saturday morning block with their own programming, with longtime favorites Schoolhouse Rock and The Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show being the only series that stuck around for the next season. When Disney bought ABC, they actually obtained the rights to Bump in the Night, only to give the show to Deke Entertainment shortly afterwards. I have no idea why either. Nonetheless, Bump in the Night continues to live on with those who remember watching it in their childhood. For me, I think a major reason I found myself gravitating towards the show was because it was in stop-motion animation, and I've always had an immense fascination and attraction towards the art form. Pingu, Wallace and Gromit, Bump in the Night, there was something incredibly appealing about seeing plasticine and clay figures move across the screen and express themselves. And even though the show was about monsters, it was never scary or intimidating. Best of all, it showcased plenty of creativity and the scripts were consistently funny. And for the most part, the show did not repeat the same storylines, so it retained a freshness throughout its 2 seasons. If, like me, you had not watched Bump in the Night since your age was in the single digits, it's actually worth going back to and appreciating anew. See you next time.